There is a silence that precedes the storm, a calm that is not the absence of war but the presence of authority. You who arrived at this video know it. You are not here by accident. Something inside you senses that this is not just another piece of content. It is a calling, a spiritual mirror, a sacred reminder of what the world tried to erase, but heaven still upholds. Have you ever wondered why, even though you are a peaceful person, there is a spiritual fury that awakens within you when injustice draws near? Why you, who carry gentleness in your eyes and compassion in your words, feel that there is something inside you capable of tearing down walls, igniting deception, and confronting evil when necessary? It is not madness, it is divine coding. You were not made only to love, you were made to protect what you love with celestial strength. The real chosen ones walk in silence, but with a hidden fire in their bones. They are gentle with the fragile, but relentless with darkness. This video does not bring something new. It comes to remind you of what you already knew in spirit. You are not gentle because you are weak. You are gentle because your strength has been trained to move only under divine command. And if you have ever felt that, if you know that there is something inside you that awakens when truth is threatened, then this is your sign. This is your moment to remember why you were called. Here we are going to speak about that dual force you carry, the meekness that comforts and the holy fury that confronts. We are not here to entertain. We are here to activate. So before continuing, do this. Subscribe to this channel now and turn on the bell, not out of vanity, but because this space is for you, chosen one. And if this message already echoes in your spirit, write 333 in the comments, the number that represents the divine trinity dwelling within you: love, justice, and sacred fire. Because the world has not yet seen your real strength, but it will. Being chosen by God is not just about receiving gifts, it's about carrying sacred weights. It's being called to live between extremes, between the embrace and the sword, between forgiveness and confrontation. It's carrying on your shoulders the gentleness that heals, and in your spirit, the fury that awakens when lies try to pose as truth. The chosen one is not only someone who loves deeply, they are someone who also knows when it's time to rise firmly in the face of chaos. This duality is not a contradiction. It is the exact reflection of God's nature within you. He is love, but he is also a consuming fire. He is comfort, but he is also judgment. In the same way, you were shaped to be a source of peace where there is war, but also an unshakable wall where there is injustice. There is a fierce strength that rests silently inside you. It is not driven by impulse, but by discernment. Not moved by ego, but by spiritual command. Many do not understand this dynamic. They call the chosen too sensitive until the day they touch what they shouldn't and find a lion where there once was only tenderness. Because the chosen do not defend themselves out of vanity. They rise out of purpose. They do not attack, they protect. They don't react, they take a stand. They don't look for a fight, but they face the war when peace is threatened. And that is exactly what unsettles the world. The kindness of the chosen is not passivity, it's strength under control. It's fire that knows how to wait for the right time to burn what is false, impure, deceptive. When you choose silence, it's not because you're afraid to speak. It's because you know your words carry weight. When you stay quiet, the world thinks it won. But heaven smiles because it knows that real power reveals itself through obedience. You are the living embodiment of divine justice in motion. Your expression may be peaceful, but your spirit is a sword. Your hands heal, but they also uphold the spiritual walls that prevent darkness from advancing. And every day you choose kindness in the face of chaos. You are telling the world, I know who I am, and I know what I was called to do. Do not let them confuse you. Being good is not being weak. Being gentle is not submission to evil. You are kind by choice, but fierce by purpose. There is a sacred moment in the life of the chosen, a moment that is not announced, not predicted, but one that changes everything. A silent second in which the soul says, enough. And suddenly, that once calm voice becomes a trumpet of justice. That serene gaze turns into the eyes of a lion, and the world around feels, even without understanding, that something has been activated. something that was hidden for far too long. The warrior of the spirit does not awaken in anger. He awakens in purpose. He does not act out of impulse, but by divine order. He is not moved by pride, but by truth. When the chosen rises in their strength, it is not to prove something to anyone, it is to align everything with what comes from above. It's as if heaven says, "Now it's your turn." And in that exact instant, everything around changes. Atmospheres shrink, lies tremble, injustice begins to retreat. The activation of the warrior does not come from worldly rage, but from the soul's ache. He tries to avoid it. He prays, he weeps, he forgives, he lets go. But when injustice persists, when evil insists, when lies no longer respect silence, he rises. And when the warrior rises, he doesn't need to shout. His presence speaks. His energy becomes a sword. His word becomes a spiritual sentence. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You felt it. You tried to be just light, just love, just understanding. But there were moments when heaven moved you, not out of pride, but because the kingdom needed you to say no, to take a stand, to defend what is just. And that's when you discovered that within your goodness, there was a warrior. This awakening is subtle but undeniable. It can happen in a moment of injustice, in an argument, in the face of an offense, or in the silence of prayer. But when it happens, there's no going back. The awakened warrior never goes back to sleep because he has discovered that his voice has weight, that his presence has impact, that his soul, when it takes a stand, becomes a spiritual earthquake. If this message is speaking to you, it's because your warrior is already standing. There is something in the chosen ones that cannot be measured by appearance, resume, or status. It is a presence, a silent authority, a fire that does not need a stage, an energy that manifests even when the chosen one is silent. But when they speak, everything around responds, because the voice of a chosen one shifts the atmosphere. That voice is not just sound, it is frequency. It's as if the spirit releases codes that shatter lies, illusions, and invisible manipulations. When the chosen one takes a stand, they're not merely speaking, they are decreeing in the spiritual realm. Every word carries weight. Every phrase has a mission. Every truth spoken in alignment with heaven is like a sword cutting what needs to be broken. And that is terrifying. It terrifies those who live behind facades. It terrifies those who feed on chaos. It terrifies those who have grown used to the silence of others. Because suddenly, someone who once seemed harmless releases a phrase that paralyzes the room, that breaks the cycle of manipulation, that reveals what many tried to hide. And all of it not because they intended to attack, but because heaven used their voice as a channel. Many times you stayed silent to keep the peace. You swallowed words, hid wounds, endured injustices. But there were moments when your very soul pushed you to speak. And when you did, something happened. Maybe it was a conversation at home, a confrontation at work, or even a prayer said in secret. But the atmosphere shifted. People changed. Masks fell. The truth was exposed. That is the power of your voice. Not just the sound from your mouth, but the spiritual frequency that emanates from your essence. That is why the enemy tried so hard to silence you. That's why so many tried to convince you that it was better to remain quiet, because they knew that if you spoke, darkness would lose ground. Chosen one, never again underestimate the power of your voice. It carries authority. It was forged in the fire of your story. It was aligned in prayer. And when you use it with wisdom, heaven backs you, hell retreats, and environments come into alignment, because your voice is not just yours. It is an instrument of God in action. The world sees gentleness as weakness, but in the spiritual realm, gentleness is sacred armor. It is the garment of celestial warriors who chose not to harden, even after all they've endured. It is a conscious choice to keep a pure heart, even in the midst of war. A decision to keep believing in goodness, even when evil seems louder. There is a silent strength in those who remain kind without being naive, who continue offering peace even when they could explode, who choose love not out of a lack of options, but from spiritual maturity. Gentleness is not the absence of pain, it's dominion over it. It's not ignorance of the chaos, it's wisdom in how to face it. You are not gentle because you are weak. You are gentle because you have known your own strength. and chose to use it with compassion. You know you could hurt, but you choose to heal. You could push away, but you choose to embrace. And that is what makes you such a silent threat. No one fears predictable noise, but everyone trembles before kindness that stands firm in the face of injustice. That gentleness doesn't make you passive. It makes you strategic. You know when to speak and when to stay silent, when to hold and when to release. You've learned to guard your peace the way a soldier guards his shield, not out of fear, but from an awareness of the value you carry. And when necessary, your gentleness can turn into firmness. Because the chosen ones know that love without boundaries is not love, it is recklessness. Heaven recognizes that posture. And that is why the chosen are so trustworthy in the eyes of God. Because they don't act on impulse. They discern. They reflect. They are not sold out to hatred nor bent by pride. They remain in the lane of grace, even when everything around them screams war. That gentleness is what keeps your essence intact. It is what protects you from becoming like those who once tried to destroy you. If you feel that this message spoke directly to your heart, write in the comments, "My gentleness is my armor," and stay with us on this journey. The next revelation will bring even more depth to your awakening. The silence of the chosen ones is a mystery the world cannot understand. Because while everyone expects the spiritual warrior to defend themselves with shouting, reactions, and visible explosions, they simply remain quiet. But what many ignore is that the silence of a chosen one is not empty. It is filled with restrained strength. It is heaven waiting for the command to advance. When the chosen one goes silent, the heavens move, because they do not act on impulse, but by command. They know there are battles that cannot be won with words. There are confrontations that don't deserve a human response, but rather divine intervention. And that is why their silence disturbs more than any scream, because it is the foreshadowing of something greater. It is the sound of God's fury, slowly aligning within the one who was called. Many think you retreat out of fear, that you forgive out of weakness, that you remain silent out of insecurity, but they have no idea they are in the presence of someone who carries the weight of divine justice. The chosen one learns early on that there are battles only heaven can fight, and that reacting before the right time can cost the anointing. So they wait, they observe, they pray. And while the world thinks they've given up, they are merely waiting for the right moment to rise with a power that is not theirs but dwells within them. A power that does not shout but transforms. A power that does not impose but establishes. A power that does not need to prove because it has already been recognized in the spiritual realm. God's fury is sacred, and the chosen carry it in silence until heaven says, "Now." And when that moment arrives, nothing can stop what is about to happen. Walls fall, lies are exposed, doors open. And those who laughed at the silence of the chosen now tremble before their authority. That silence is what protects the time of the seed. It is what sustains the process until the fruit is born. And it is in that time that the chosen one is trained to master the fire they carry. They learn that their strength is not in immediate reaction, but in faithfulness to a God who sees everything and acts at the exact right time. Silence, therefore, is the language of those who trust. It is the refuge of those who do not need to prove themselves. You are not weak for not responding, you are being faithful. And that kind of faithfulness activates heaven like no other attitude, because it shows that you know who fights for you, that you don't need to fight to win, you just need to obey. If this truth touched you, take a deep breath and remember, when the chosen one is silent, heaven speaks on their behalf. The world still stumbles in its shallow reading of appearances. It judges the chosen as fragile, because it sees in them a gentleness that doesn't fit into the mold of loud power and imposing authority. But that gentleness is, in truth, the mantle covering an authority forged in heaven. The chosen one was shaped to be gentle, yes, but never harmless, because their gentleness is a choice, and their authority is anointing. That gentleness is what confuses those who are used to arrogance disguised as leadership. The chosen one does not need to dominate with force, because they already naturally carry a presence that commands respect. They walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts, not because they shout, but because they carry within them the frequency of heaven. That is why the world doesn't know how to handle them, because they do not conform. They establish a new standard without uttering a single word. That hidden authority reveals itself in the smallest actions, in the way the chosen one listens attentively, in the way they forgive without seeking applause, in the look that sees beyond the flesh, and above all, in the discernment that silently confronts the spirit of deceit disguised as friendship. The chosen one is gentleness in times of war, tenderness in the midst of chaos. And for this reason, they are often misunderstood by those who confuse kindness with a lack of boundaries. But a moment comes when gentleness is no longer enough to contain heaven's movement. And then, the authority of the chosen one is manifested with firmness, clarity, and power. Not to humiliate, but to bring alignment. That authority was not earned by human merit. It was granted. It was received as part of a calling that demands responsibility. And the more the chosen one bows before God, the more unshakable they become before men. Their authority is not arrogance, it is the consequence of intimacy. Because no one walks so close to the source of truth and remains untouched by lies, whoever walks with God carries the language of heaven. And that language doesn't always please the ears of the earth. But the chosen one was not anointed to please. They were anointed to transform. There comes a moment in the journey of the chosen when meekness gives way to visible authority. It is when heaven decides that silence has fulfilled its purpose, and the time has come to rise with courage, with truth, with fire in the eyes. That is the moment when the inner lion awakens. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but because the time for inaction is over, and now the one anointed to reign must step out of the cave. This awakening doesn't come with noise. It begins as a discomfort in the soul, a sacred restlessness. The chosen one starts to feel they can no longer delay what they were called to do. That the time to hide out of fear or prudence has ended. That there are souls waiting for their courage. That there are spiritual territories crying out for their presence. And then something lights up inside. Something that had been sleeping in the name of peace. Something that stayed hidden for so long that many doubted it even existed. But heaven always knew. Heaven always saw. And it is heaven itself that blows upon the embers and reignites the flame. Because the lion that lives within the chosen is not a symbol of violence, but of positioning, of presence, of authority. This lion does not attack on impulse. It roars on mission. And when it roars, there is no more room for doubt, manipulation, or half-truths. The chosen one, once activated, no longer negotiates their light to fit into someone else's darkness. They move forward, knowing the cost of their obedience will be high, but the reward of their faithfulness will be eternal. There is a kind of courage that is not taught, it is awakened. And when it rises within the chosen, everything around them begins to shift. Doors close without explanation. Masks fall. People walk away. But all of this is now lost, it is preparation. The lion awakening within the chosen is the living proof that the season of adaptation is over. Now it is time for rulership, for spiritual war, for conquered territory. If you feel that this roar is starting to echo within you, if you realize you've become more intolerant of lies, more firm in your decisions, more aware of your mission, then do not be alarmed. This is not pride. This is spiritual maturity. It is heaven saying, the time has come. The time has come to stop asking for permission to be who you were born to be, to walk with steady steps, with eyes full of truth, and hands ready to build the new. Because the lion inside you was not planted to make you feared, but to make you undeniable. Every chosen one carries within them a patience that is not of this world, an almost supernatural ability to endure, to wait, to believe when everyone else would have given up. It is a patience forged in the fire of obedience, refined in the nights when the soul screams and heaven seems silent. But even this patience has a limit. And when that limit is reached, it is not chaos that enters, it is the justice of God that rises. It's crucial to understand this. The chosen never act from the flesh. They wait, they trust, they pray. They forgive more than they should, stay silent more than they could, endure more than what would be fair. But when the measure is full and heaven decides that it is enough, no system, no person, no force can stop the movement of divine justice. It's not revenge, it's correction, it's not anger, it's order being restored. Because the world may mock the silence of a chosen one, may abuse their kindness, may take advantage of their compassion. But heaven ignores no act of abuse, no hidden injustice, no tear that fell in secret. When the time is fulfilled, God doesn't just clear the chosen's path. He reveals everything that was hidden. He exposes intentions, tears down facades, unmasks schemes, and the most powerful part is that the chosen doesn't need to lift a finger. Divine justice acts with precision, with strength, with holiness. That is when the world begins to be astonished, because the one who was doubted starts to be exalted. The one who was persecuted starts to be honored. The one who was ignored begins to be remembered. And not because of human merit, but by heavenly decree. Divine justice, when it comes, doesn't just correct the past. It opens a new future. And maybe you're reading these words and feeling that you're at that point, that your patience has been tested to the limit, that you've reached the edge of what you could bear. Know that this is not the end. It's the sign that heaven is moving. And when heaven moves, every injustice trembles, every lie is exposed, and everything that was stolen begins to return. The chosen one doesn't need to prove anything. They only need to remain, because the time of exaltation is not decided by men, it is decided by God. And when it arrives, no door remains shut. No promise stays asleep. No humiliation goes unanswered. This is the promise for those who endured in silence. Heaven is coming with justice. Chosen one, if you've made it this far, know that this is not a coincidence. This message found you at the exact time, the moment when your soul already knew it needed to remember your true identity. You walked through deserts no one saw, swallowed words no one heard, cried in silence while carrying with grace the kind of pain that would have crushed others, and even so, you remained kind, steadfast, just, good, but full of fire. A fire that never burned for revenge, but always blazed with purpose. The world tried to mold you to fit in, but you weren't born to fit in. You were born to stand out. They tried to silence your spirit by confusing your gentleness with weakness. But heaven knows, every time you chose peace instead of war, you didn't stay quiet, you grew stronger. And now the time has come. The moment when the chosen one stops hiding and begins to take position. You're no longer waiting for anyone's permission, because heaven has already commissioned you. Your presence is a prophetic sign. Your firmness is a silent blow against systems of manipulation. And your compassion, the very one so many tried to take advantage of, is what makes your power invincible. Don't explain yourself, don't justify yourself, just be. Speak when instructed, move when you're sent, but never again doubt the anointing that surrounds you. You are the sword hidden in the sheath of peace, the thunder that walks in silence. God's answer to battles that haven't even begun yet, and your time is now. Comment below 444 if this message ignited something inside of you. It's not just any number, it's the number of spiritual alignment, divine protection, and an active calling. Write it as a decree. And if you're not yet subscribed here to the Wisdom Ascension channel, subscribe now, because every video is a prophetic reminder of who you truly are, and the world needs your light. You're not just watching, you're being reminded. You are being revealed now because the world needs your light.